now tuned in to the Cold Hard Truth, Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
Which makes sense with them.
All right.
Big news. I have some important news for you. Interesting news.
It's Blake and Darren's Spilling the Tea with Sandy.
Cayman's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
All right, let's find out what's going on this morning. Hey, Sandy.
Good morning.
Vietnam.
What's up?
How you doing?
How's it going?
Was
Oh my gosh.
commercial?
Yes.
A little extra.
Yeah, well,
Hey, it's hump day. What can I say?
someday. Oh, how many cliches are we going to throw into this? They're not
A
cliches,
lot.
like slogan
This
kind of
station's
thing.
all about throwbacks.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's
So
happening,
good.
Sandy?
Here for it. Hey, I'm good. I'm good. You know,
Why can't we see your face this morning?
Oh, no.
lots going. I know
Are
you.
you still
You
getting
remind me
dressed?
of a particular viewer I have by the name of Miss Morna.
Yeah.
If I ever have my camera off, she's always like, "Why can't I see you?" Normally, I'm doing a little bit of something tech behind, or
Are you getting dressed right now?
putting on my morning face or something fun.
Yeah, you put it on your makeup. There's
Yeah.
this girl that like puts on her makeup while she talks about murders that have happened.
Oh my God, I love her.
She's great. So you could do that. You could be putting on your makeup and talking about like the latest news in Cayman.
The problem is I don't really wear makeup
I
normally.
know. Me neither.
That would be like all
are
of
you
10
telling-
seconds for me to put on lip gloss.
Are you telling me you look like that with no makeup on? That is incredible.
It's just normally I just do like a little lipstick or lip gloss and that's it.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
And
amazing.
I try to moisturize. I've got my little vitamin E and aloe moisturizer here.
And the sunscreen. That's all I do is like sunscreen, like moisturizer, and then
Yeah. Is that
maybe
brush my hair.
you have a lava
Very,
lamp?
very seldom do I put on any makeup. Yeah.
Is that new? Is that a lava lamp behind you? What is that?
That is my little, I don't know if it's called a lava lamp, but it is a little lighting for my studio. A little extra something.
Ooh, fancy.
Cool.
What's happening newswise, newsworthy? Got anything this morning?
Well, this morning on our show, we're definitely going to be talking about, we have Myles joining us along with Alric, Lindsay. And we're going to be talking about just criminality in the Cayman Islands as it relates to gangs and some of the violence that has been happening lately.
Were you able to get a gang member on?
Not yet. I think they've been busy hiding from the police.
I wonder why.
But yeah, they probably have been really busy. But yeah, I'm still trying to speak to some.
Are you
know what is so interesting is before Sheldon Brown passed away, we actually wanted to interview him. And I think he just wasn't really feeling well. He was kind of like, by the time they let him out of prison, he was really probably on his last sort of situation. But we weren't able to interview him. But yeah, I think it's something that I'm going to work on because I think it's, it needs to happen.
Wow.
But yeah, so it's
what else you got?
What else happened yesterday? I feel like yesterday was a pretty normal day. So people are getting ready for the Olympics. You guys know the Olympics starts in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
so
we
the
had
Cayman
Reagan
Islands
on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry?
We had Reagan Ruddy on the show.
Oh yeah. We're going to be interviewing her this week as well.
Yeah.
Super
so the Special Olympics delegation is getting ready to leave for Tokyo. So that was
that's right.
in the news yesterday. An interesting tidbit that I think everybody should know is the latest ombudsman's decision was against the Department of Agriculture. And basically they told them that they cannot collect customer information for retail purposes. So you guys know a little bit, I'm sure, about this Data Protection Act. And they've given them 30 days to comply. And essentially what happened was the Ombudsman's office received a complaint that the DOA was collecting unnecessary information. So they were asking like for your name, your email address, phone number, where you live, all this kind of information.
For what?
And the Ombudsman's office, when you'd buy a retail good, plants and stuff. And
they want you to sign up for their mailer or something or what?
Well, the Ombudsman's office said, no, you're asking for way too much information for what this is, with no legal explanation, as you've rightfully said. So they had to destroy all the information that they currently have, and they can't collect any more information. So I thought that was quite interesting.
But you have the right to decline, though. They're not refusing to sell you something unless you give them that information, right?
Well, I don't know how they did it. I don't know.
People always ask. I mean, how many times have you been asked to check a box when you sign something or when you buy something online for their, weekly email or mailer or something? I just say no. Sorry, I'm not going to give you that.
People do kind of make you feel like it's mandatory, and I suspect that that's what was happening here. Because if it was optional, I'm not sure the person probably would have complained. But even in the States, I mean, I remember I used to work in retail a long time ago, so I don't know if it's still the same. But we would try to get a customer's phone number and email address just for marketing purposes.
Right, exactly.
And some of those POS systems made this feel a requirement. So I don't know, but the Ombudsman's office has said nope. You got to stop it and get rid of the existing information. So that was kind of interesting, something for other data collectors to know, because if you fall within the definition of, what is a data collector as it relates to this particular act, then you need to know that basically what they determined is that you only need to collect what information is necessary for the transaction.
Right. So obviously that'd be your name, address, phone number, email.
That's not, but why? Honestly,
they said none of that was necessary.
If you're buying something for $5, say they don't.
Yeah, you don't need to know anything about that person.
No, you don't need to know me. That's. I mean, it's like when like when you call into I've called on a crazy driver that almost ran me off the road with my kids in the car, and I called and I was on the phone because the traffic department made me then call 911. So it's like, I think that's a little over, but that's what they do here. They make you call 911 if it's like that. So I called and I said, this is what's happening. This is where they're going. But they almost ran me and my kids off the road, yada, yada, yada. And they go, and what's your name? What's your phone number? And I was like, no, it doesn't matter.
Even when you call 911, they want to know all this stuff. And
I go, I don't care. Do your job. I'm leaving. Bye. And I hang up because I'm like, no, I don't do that.
Speaking of that, Aaron,
I'm not the one that collects the evidence. You are.
Well, they're trying to, but you're not allowing them to.
Well, no.
they're like, lady, help us solve the case.
Yeah, help me,
unless
help
they
you.
ran into me,
Help me,
how am I going to
help
prove
you.
something? It's my word against someone else's. Unless they
That's why
actually
you get a dash cam, Aaron. That's why you get a dash cam.
That's
I need
right.
to get one of
So
those.
listen, speaking of that, this is kind of breaking news. CMR, aka me, was in a car accident yesterday.
What?
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Well, I was wondering why you have your head bandaged. I didn't want to bring it up.
So we report fender benders every single day because they happen every single day now.
Reporting on yourself.
Yeah, so I had to put it up because I thought to myself, I know people are driving by right now, tooting at me, and I'm waving at them, and they're going to go, where's this fender bender now that she's involved in it, right?
Actually, you had all your people sending pictures to you of you in your accident.
Thank you. Well, at least that's good coverage to protect yourself.
Yeah.
So was it your fault, Sandy?
No, it wasn't. You
no.
know what happened? And I guess maybe we've all kind of done this before, but it's lazy driving. Because listen, I was coming out of the side road. I forget what that road is called. It's right in front of Home Gas next to Burger King, right?
Okay.
Going on Walker's Road. So I'm going to turn to the left to go pick up my daughter from school. And this guy comes out of the Burger King exit. And instead of him going across into the correct lane.
Oh, no, they don't.
And then turning, because he was going to turn further, same road as me, but obviously on the left side, because that's where we drive. He actually got in the right lane and was riding down the right lane to then make a quick turn. And of course, I'm looking to my right for traffic that is coming my way, which wouldn't be him. And then I pull out. So I ran into him, but he's at fault because he was in the wrong lane.
Well, yeah.
Wow. Last 2 days in a row, there's been an accident at the A.L. Thompson roundabout. And
that's like the most accident-prone location, I think.
That one?
Can I tell you that?
That one in the Compass location is cursed.
And where? And the Compass location.
And Suicide Circle, which is Grand Harbor roundabout.
Oh, that's
yeah. Those are top
because
three.
People on the Grand Harbor one, they stop trying to get in. It's like, don't stop in the middle. If you can't go, you don't stop in the middle to stop. Also, people coming that are going on to go to the Eastern districts, don't cut in the middle. You have 2 lanes on the outside.
Yeah.
Don't get in the middle cones.
Right.
Go on the outside.
Yeah.
What are you doing? That's stopping traffic flow.
I think they legit need to rethink that entire roundabout.
But that and the A.L. Thompson one, they need to stop some of the
I know
exits
how to do it.
there.
Stoplights like they do in the UK. Stoplights at the roundabouts.
I mean,
I don't even know why we have so many roundabouts on this island, because I personally think roundabouts confuse people.
I did.
Kidding me? It should be a prerequisite with your. I mean, drive. Obviously, we're going to get into a bigger conversation over that, but you should be able to know how to drive a roundabout if you have a license.
I think roundabouts are the problem. They
see. I don't. People not knowing how to drive.
And when you think about the fact that we have so many people here who've never seen a roundabout before coming here. When you think about that, even in the States, like roundabouts don't really exist.
No, they don't.
You seldom see a roundabout in the U.S.
No, but I did not grow up with them, but I have no problem driving on them. I have figured out
because
that's because you have to, because it's how you drive. It's just, if you're going to have.
But when you and I both moved here, neither of us had training on roundabouts. They leave it up to you to learn, and a lot of people don't.
That is true.
Yeah. Well, they were like,
not everyone can be as smart as me.
Get in the car and go.
That's true.
Sandy, that was interesting.
So you're okay? Is your car okay?
Oh, well, the car got a little mashed up. And what is so crazy is I would not have been doing any significant speed because I literally was pulling out and he was like right in front of me. So maybe 3 miles an hour. And I hate to see what that's going to cost.
And lucky you didn't have your daughter in the car too.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna be a little upset with you, but now I'm guessing that the reason why you didn't drop our CMR mugs off was because you were in an accident yesterday.
Well, I tell you what, I can't really blame that because that was almost 5 o'clock. I just got really busy yesterday, dropping off a lot of mugs, and I'm still doing the prizes from the anniversary.
We're down on the list. We're so far down on the list.
How far down on the list are we?
She was dropping off mugs to everyone but Blake and Aaron.
Wow.
Right
now.
Here's the thing. I need a location where I can just leave the mugs and say, you know what? You guys go collect them. So maybe I need to talk to you,
No.
I mean, yeah, maybe I need to just leave them at 106.1 and you guys go by there and say hi to them.
I'm just going to make my own CMR mug.
So
with
funny.
a post-it.
Classic.
There we go. You guys want to drop them off?
Just put them in the middle of the Grand Harbor roundabout and we'll just stop in the middle and go grab them.
Don't run them over. Just grab a mug as you're driving by.
We'll just park in the middle of the road because apparently that's okay.
You know what? Maybe I need to go out in traffic and hand out mugs one morning.
You know, like when firemen go and collect money in their boot in the U.S., you could go and just hand out,
hand out mugs and piss the drivers off. Like, what the heck is she doing in the middle of the road?
Well, you wouldn't make them mad if you gave them a mug with coffee in it. That would be nice.
Yeah.
All right, Sandy, we're gonna let you go. We'll talk to you tomorrow and catch Sandy
guys.
right now on CM.
Have a great day.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye. All right, folks. That's Blake and Aaron. Kiss 106.1. Check them out. They've got they're reunited for the morning show. So let me just have a quick look here. We have a couple housekeeping things to do. So good morning to Miss Morna. Buenos dias, Elizabeth. Olivia's here. Alice, Indira, Larry. You guys drinking some coffee, some tea? What you got in your mug this morning? I'm just having water. Good morning, Yvonne, Jonathan. Hello. So I'm going to let you guys know where to collect the mugs. So I think I'm going to do a location town. I'm just going to confirm this morning with my aunt because I'm going to leave them at her place. It's kind of centrally located, and I think it's easier to do that. So if your name is on the mug list, and I think we have enough, but if your name has been on the list for a minute, make sure that you get yours. Jonathan is joining us from St. Martin. Good morning. Virtuous Panook is here. Sue, good morning. Leanne. Morna says, happy birthday to my friend Sue McLaughlin. Oh, Sue, is it your birthday today? Well, happy birthday. Oh, one other thing I should mention is this week, I think it was Monday, the week is going by so quickly, was actually the Honorable Minister of Tourism and Transport, none other than Mr. Kenneth Bryan's birthday as well. I think someone said for early 40s. So we'll leave it at that. Happy birthday, Kenneth. I hope you're having a great birthday week. Good morning to Alba. Buenos dias. Barbara, Elizabeth, and Jasara are all here. Francisco says it's time to start paying the national team players and giving the youth some hope like the rest of the world. Catherine, good morning. Elizabeth, yes, happy birthday to the beautiful Sue. Yes, I'm fine, everyone, in terms of the accident. There were no injuries to report. Like I said, thankfully, it was very low speed because I was literally just pulling out of a side road. So it wasn't like 10, 20, 30 miles an hour or anything like that. Had on my seatbelt. I always wear my seatbelt. First of all, I have a car that won't stop dinging if I don't. And boy, that sound can become very, very irritating. In fact, the irony of it is I was dropping off something to a mug and a prize to one of our listeners right before this happened. And that's why I was in the vicinity. So I had been running up and down most of yesterday afternoon, just kind of dropping off prizes and stuff like that to people. So I'm still trying to get to all of you. But I also went to Aeropost to pick up a few things. And when I was at Aeropost, quite interestingly, they had a package. I don't even know what's in it. I need to open it. I haven't opened that one yet. But I think it's some cleaning supplies or something that I ordered. So it's a little bit heavy. It has a little bit of weight to it. And I put that in the front seat. And so the car thought that someone was in the front seat because I guess it weighed enough. And it kept dinging, dinging, dinging. So when I finally got an opportunity, I had to pull that out of the front seat and put it in the back seat so that the car would stop buzzing at me to buckle your seatbelt. I'm like, there's nobody there. So yes, I'm fine. The vehicle, it's drivable. but it definitely has quite a bit of front end damage, and he got it on his, he had almost cleared me. So he got it kind of closer to the back end of his vehicle. But yeah, I was looking at the damage. I'm like, oops, pretty much the entire front end of my car is going to have to be replaced. And not to mention probably even the hood, maybe, because the hood got dented. It is like bent a little bit. So yes, could have been worse. Thankfully, it wasn't. And, we have to be thankful for small things. And I didn't, I haven't had an accident in a really long time, believe it or not. I can't even remember the last time I've had an accident, definitely in excess of 10 years. So I feel like I might not be the world's best driver, but I just don't have accidents. Like, I'm still like pretty careful on the roads. I don't like do crazy speeds or anything like that. So, I guess on this island, especially, we're all going to have a little fender bender here and there. So the guy was honest. I called the police because I've heard of too many horror stories. And this is just a straight policy that I have. I've heard of too many horror stories where people say, oh, let's just exchange information. And you do that. And then they try to renege on the fact that they are at fault. So this is advice that I always give people. I say, listen, you take a chance when you don't have the police there determining and have a report of what happened. So I said, let me just call the police. They didn't take very long to get there, thankfully. They were there in tutus. And so that was fantastic. And we were able to, get it sorted out. And he basically, the story that I told her, he basically said, yeah, that's exactly what happened. He was just thinking he could have turned real quick in the wrong lane, kind of almost using that other lane as a turning lane. But, on Walker's Road, there's not enough space for a middle turning lane. And so he should have gone all the way over in the correct lane, gone the whatever number of feet he needed to go, put on his indicator, and then turn again. So it just demonstrates the necessity to follow all of the road rules. And when you don't, you kind of take a chance. And unfortunately, the chance he took yesterday in the end turned out to not be worth it, because now his van has got damage. My car is all banged up and has some damage. And now he's going to have a claim on his insurance. So let me just show you guys the picture. There it is. So you can see the hood is dented, and on the side, it's actually now not really meeting that side piece properly. So it got a good banging up. Part of the bottom piece is completely missing. That fell off. Part of the grill, like right above the hood, is cracked. And that little silver piece in the middle is also cracked. So, those things they can't patch. So all of those bits and pieces, I'm sure this is like a complete front end replacement situation. But again, I'm thankful. It could have been so much worse. Accidents do happen. People do make mistakes. So I didn't really get upset about it. Obviously, it was bad timing for me because I was going to pick up my daughter. So I had to call my husband and ask him to go get her because the school is very strict about pickup times. And of course, he came by just to make sure that everything was okay. And, wasn't so much of a big deal. But I posted it because I said to myself, well, one young lady, she was actually coming out of Burger King after the accident. And she offered me some water because I was really hot. So thank you. I don't even know that young lady's name. She was driving a truck, but thank you so much for that. And, I'm like, I report on everybody else who have accidents, right? So why wouldn't I report on myself? So yeah, I did that. And it's all right. It's okay. It's all good. I could see the young man kind of probably kicking himself. He's like, darn it. I ran into CMR. Is she going to put me in blast now? I can't even remember his name right now. He gave me his name and stuff. Thankfully, he's with my insurance company. So I'm just going to go and email them this morning, make sure he files his report, get the 2 quotes and just get on with it. I'll be inconvenienced for a little bit in terms of not being without a vehicle once the parts come in. But anyway, good morning to Perla, Larry, Louie, Ingrid, Cheryl, Ralston, good morning. Thank you for tuning in. Miss Felicia, Miss Darlene says to keep a mug for her. When are you coming home, Miss Darlene? Juanita is here saying not to forget her mug. Yes, so I'm going to let you guys know later on. I'll put up a post, so just check the page where the mugs are at. Everybody's wishing Sue a pleasant and happy birthday. Good morning, Omeria. Miss Sue, you got to send us a photo so we can put it up on the page. And yes, John, we're going to be talking about the gun violence here in a second. We're waiting on, I'm wondering if Alric is still joining us this morning because we were waiting on him. And then we're going to get started. All right. Oh, quickly, one of our listeners says, good morning. I'm watching regarding your accident. You forgot to mention that you had not been drinking and that you don't drink ever. Yes, I definitely wasn't drinking. And then they said, please came quickly because I'm afraid of CMR. Well, I don't know about that, but they did come pretty quickly. So, yes. Anyway, yep, let me just see. So good morning, Miss Rhonda, joining us from Indianapolis. I'm glad you came out. Thank you, John. Yes. Odell, good morning. On the list for my mug. Yes. Oh, yes, Barbara, you're on the list. So make sure if you're in the notification group, you'll get a notification later on once the mugs have been dropped off. And I'll ping the location to everybody. And then just keep, have a look at the page and I'll tell you guys exactly where the mug drop off will happen. So we have Michael Myles. We're waiting on Alric. I'm sure Alric will jump in at some point in the discussion this morning. And we're going to be talking about gangs in the Cayman Islands and, quite frankly, criminality. So it's a topic that is on everybody's minds at the moment. But I feel like in this country, we always, talk about it for like a day. And then we stop talking about it. And that's it. We will commission a report. And big shout out to our folks on Instagram. We've got Jermaine, Kayla, Devin, Kay, Armando, Killy, fashion lover, blogger, Dax, DeMarco, Sheena, Vanessa, Stefan. Who else can I read? MK O'Connor, Josh, Magnum Jewelers is joining us. Gordon is also there. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. But so let's bring Michael into the conversation. Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Good morning, Sandra. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Bonnie and Sophia are tuned into the conversation. So Michael, I'm sure you are one of those people who has an appreciation of this topic from your own wealth of experience as it relates to working with young people and working with the youth of the Cayman Islands. So I thought it was important to have people such as yourself on here who can help us understand maybe where we've gone wrong with a view to take in some drastic corrective actions so that we can fix some of what's going on. I feel like we're like the hamster on the little, what's the hamster wheel called? The little Ferris wheel. We're just running in circles and we're not making any inroads as it relates to gang violence and criminality in this country. And we only start to talk about it again when we have a situation like what has happened. And I think this is a first in terms of escalation. So in my mind, you can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time that we have had two, not one, but two mass shootings where multiple people have been shot at a specific incident. And maybe it might even be a record for having two people, shot in such a manner within the space of a week, because it literally was 1 week apart. So it's escalating because of the type of weaponry that was obviously used. It looks like it was some sort of automatic weapon. We've had people saying it was AR-15 or whatever these weapons are called. So this is quite serious. It's shocking, really, to me. I never thought I'd see the day in the Cayman Islands where this would be happening. Jonathan is saying that the lighting is pretty bad. He says that you look like you're under the witness protection program. I think what it is, Jonathan, is because he's got that window behind him that creates a backlight effect. It might help a little bit, Michael, if you actually pulled your camera down as well. Like probably, yeah. There we go. Yes, because then that backlight was washing you out. There we go. Okay. Sometimes lighting is everything, folks. Trust me, I know. So he's not in the witness protection program, Jonathan. He's very happy to show his face. So Michael, good morning, and thank you for joining us with your expertise. We're so glad to have you here.
Good to be here.
So where do we begin with this conversation? I mean, it's one of those things where I feel like we've had the conversation before, and I know that you are very much aware of the numerous reports that we've had over the years that have been produced on this topic. And you sent me something yesterday that said, this is a list of all of the reports over the past 20 years that we have commissioned and paid for, and still nothing has been done with them, which is really, really shocking to me. So perhaps that's a starting point. Do we start there to have this discussion, or where do we begin?
I am not, I'd like to say that I'm surprised about the most recent shootings. I'm not. We are coming out of a very depressed time. COVID has been hard on our country. We've had thousands of people who've been laid off or jobless. We have people living really by a shoestring at this point. We have significantly increased amount of people on welfare or government subsidy. We also have a significant amount of people who are now hopeless. Right, that there, until a few weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, there was no discussion of when the borders were going to be open. So people have gotten quite hopeless. I mean, and I can tell you, because I work with it every single day. I work with a lot of young people. I work with a lot of folks who come to the center for training because they want to transition to another career or another industry. And I see the level of hopelessness that these people are dealing with. I also have a program at the prison system. So I'm always in constant communication or contact with people in the prison system. And I can tell you the people there, the young men there are getting younger. What we have failed to have a clear understanding, Sandra, and certainly for the listening public, is that crime doesn't stop or crime doesn't start when a youngster pick up a gun. Crime starts when they don't get a formal education. Crime starts when they are the product of a teenage pregnancy or some sort of sexual abuse. Crime stops when, or crime starts when a mental illness goes untreated. I've gotten to the point where I don't have these discussions anymore, Sandra, with anyone, because we always have a knee-jerk reaction to this. I remember 10 years ago when we had a spree of shootings. You mentioned that this may be the first one. It's not. I gave the police, and I tracked it just based on research, based on all of the police reports and newspaper reports. I tracked every shooting, every gang-related shooting between 2005 and 2015. And I tracked all of the perpetrators, all of the victims. I tracked the ages that these folks were, the ages of the victims and ages of the perpetrators. 90% of these crimes are unsolved. So I sat down with the National Security Council, which is all those people that you see in the newspaper, police commissioner, the governor, deputy governor, and all of these folks. And we started to discuss why this stuff is happening. They don't really want to prevent this stuff. What they want to do is, and the justification has always been, let's hire more police officers. So that's always the justification. So it's always a knee-jerk reaction. And what they don't understand is that you're never going to stop crime like that. All the jurisdictions have tried. You're never going to stop crime by trying to arrest everybody or hire more police officers through it. You're never going to do that. We have more police per capita than most major states in the U.S. We have no strategy. I cannot recall a time where someone was actually, and the people could correct me, certainly the police can correct me, of anyone who've actually been charged under the gang law. I've never heard it. They've charged under
we do have a gang law. I was trying to remember.
A gang law. I don't know of anyone who's sitting in the prison system right now who's been suspected of gang behavior. And we have sent 3 of them overseas because even though they've gotten, I don't know, 30 something years in prison, they were still too dangerous to be in this country. So we sent them overseas. They didn't go under the gang law.
Thank you, Michael, I didn't even remember that had been done, to be quite frank, but let me just remind, for the benefit of our listeners, that in 2007, and I want to talk about here in a second, if you have any of that information available regarding to the history of gang violence, but in 2007, Cayman Islands lawmakers updated the Penal Code to include criminal offenses for gang membership. And you guys will remember that, I think it was yesterday, I was saying how I'd been watching this somewhat dated video on the gang situation in Trinidad, because it is, 7 years now that video was made, but it was still very, very relevant and very, very interesting. But they had gang legislation that made it an offense to be a gang member. And I did not realize that we actually, but Michael has just reminded me, that we do have it embedded in our penal code. So it's not a separate piece of legislation, but they do include criminal offenses for being a gang member and for participation in gang-related activities. Anyone convicted of belonging to a gang, as defined in the code, faces a maximum of $500,000 fine and up to 20 years in prison. Now, this report says that there's been no criminal prosecutions under that section of the Penal Code since it was introduced, and this is as of 2010. So let me, while we're on the phone, while we're on this show, I'm going to actually email the police commissioner and ask him, since 2010, if we've had any. Michael, please continue. We do have Jared who's joining us. So folks, let me remind you that this show, The Cold Hard Truth, is your program. It's your show. We always read your comments where we can, and we appreciate you guys commenting. But really, we want you to be part of the conversation. Call in, let your voices be heard. This is your show. This is your program. So do not forget that we do have that option available to you.
Yeah. This is the Cold Hard Truth News Podcast. Cold Hard Truth News Podcast. Come make we talk on the live broadcast. This is the Cayman #1 live talk show. Come make we talk where you go on the news.
So folks, I'm going to have a look at the Penal Code a little bit more, but we do have Jared and Alric, who I'm going to go ahead and bring into the conversation. But Michael, please continue your points that you were making.
So one of the more current shootings that we also kind of rallied the troops again that I've tracked was done in 2015. We had a shooting on June 16th, 2015, a shooting on June 20th, 2015. We had 4 people shot on June 15th. All of them lived, but all of them related to gang-related shootings. And then we had a shooting on March 28th, 2015. We had 2 shootings on March 28th, 2015. We had a shooting on January 20th, 2015. Right? So when we go back, we had loads of shootings in 2015. I was once again contacted by numerous amounts of people to sit down and discuss why this is happening. And I've said to a lot of folks that contacted me, let's look at why these shootings are happening. Let's look at where these people are at. Let's also look at some of the history of these folks. History of gang-related activity from high school, drug and alcohol involvement, in and out of the juvenile and youth system. We can track all of this. We should no longer be surprised at this point in time that young men are choosing the decision to hold on to guns because it gives them some level of power. I think that there's one of the things that we fail to understand is that when people are losing control, when they're spinning out of control, in particular young people, they want to hold on to something. We've all been there. And if it's a gun, then that's what it is. But why are we not replacing it with something? What we are going to do, and again, this has been my prediction for 20 years. It's been my experience, Sandra, for 20 years. It may not have been anyone else's experience. But every time this happens, the National Security Council pulls themselves together because throughout, as long as there's no shootings, the National Security Council never meets. And if they do, nothing is ever resolved. There's been no sort of strategy that they've put down in place that says, okay, here's how we're going to continue to develop depressed communities or communities that are experiencing high levels of violence. Because when we look at the crime statistics, right? Some of the indicators on the crime statistics that's telling you that gun violence is coming are things like petty thefts, domestic abuse. When those things are fluctuating up and down, and the police commissioner just I think maybe a month or so ago, maybe 2 months ago, can't remember the dates, but they released the 2020 crime statistics. Even though it was through COVID, it was still through the roof, right? In certain areas. So it's telling you how frustrated people are. And I'm not saying that it's limited to Cayman, but we live in Cayman. But when you sit down and we're talking about this stuff to say, well, what are we going to do? Like, what's the strategy going to be to address some of this? All we want to talk about is how many boats, how many police cars, how many more guns we're going to put on the street, and how much more officers we're going to buy. Then the conversation comes up again of, okay, we need to build a bigger prison. We need more legal aid attorneys. We need more people that were given to DPP to prosecute more people. We've purchased the Scotia building downtown to put more courthouses in because the Chief Justice is saying the courts are too backed up and people aren't getting their day in court. And it's based on human rights and all of that sort of stuff. But I've never heard anybody come to the table and say, hey, you know something? We need to fix the education system. We need to make sure that there's more opportunities to do training and development for young people that are not going off to college. And we know 80% of these youngsters that come out of the public school system, private school, they're not moving on to college, right? And we also know that there's 30,000 work permits here easily that our people can have. But what we continue to do is we continue to just focus on gang violence rather than how do we prevent it or how do we provide early intervention? One of the things that I consistently deal with is mental health and the access to the services. I was dealing with a young man just this week who significantly need treatment. He was an inpatient. They released him, no treatment. We're now trying to help him get into a facility because he needs treatment. Well, if he can't support himself, if he doesn't know where he's going to live and he doesn't, what do you think he's going to eventually do? He's going to eventually get into criminal behavior. And then what's going to happen? That's going to escalate, and it's costing us as a country. So when you look at organizations, sounding like, the police department, we're paying an upwards of $50-something million now in just that one department, right? Well, why can't we take some of that money and look at how do we provide preventative programs for young people and for their families. That's the biggest issue that we have here. I don't really focus right now on the crime because crime's going to happen. What I focus on is, can we provide early intervention? And I'm telling you, we can. We're small enough that we can identify every child in our public, private, on the road that know that they're going to commit some level of crime later on in life or currently, and we can support them a little bit better.
And you know what,
not to.
Michael, we do have some other some audience members who join in, so we're going to get to them here in a second. But I agree with that last point because I have a family member who's an educator, and they said to me 15, 20 years ago that at the early elementary school, so in year 1, they can look at a classroom and teachers can pick out which of those children with a 97% level of accuracy, which of those children are going to have be incarcerated, which are going to be early teen moms. I mean, all these factors, and a large part of it is because they know the homes and the environment that those children are coming from.
Agreed.
And this is what I was saying yesterday, you know, as parents, all of us who are parents, we always want to blame somebody else. So we do want to blame the government. We do want to blame the system, but few of us want to take accountability for the fact that even if we are damaged goods, somehow we don't get the help that we need and we don't implement the measures that are necessary to try to protect our children from being the next generation of damaged goods. You know, and I had a mother reach out to me yesterday after the program, and she said, Sandy, thank you so much for having that conversation and for saying that, because I have to admit as a parent that in some respects, I have failed my own children. Not even that is necessarily your intent. Sometimes your intent is to try to do better, but if you don't have the resources and the understanding to do so, you're in that cycle of just dysfunctionality. You know, I had another parent who works for one of the government agencies, and she said, Sandy, you know, what is part of the issue here is that you have people who do not want to, mothers who don't actually want to have children. So the children are a burden to them. And the only reason why they got pregnant is because they were in a relationship and they were thinking that this was something that could have saved a relationship or kept a man or whatever. So parents and mothers in particular end up resenting their children. And I had to think about that for a second, because I'm like, a mother resenting her child? But it does at some level make logical sense as well. So we have Jared, who's joining us this morning, and M, who is also joining us. Alric is here. Good morning, Alric. Good morning, Jared. And good morning, M.
Good morning.
Good morning. Jared, I see this morning you're getting brave, man. You're showing your face now. So good to see you.
Nice to see you too. Nice to see you too.
Really enjoyed your contributions last time, Jared. Obviously, you're a young man. I don't know how old you are, by the way, but we can see that you're a young man. And you know, we need to have people like you involved in the conversation. So let's start off with you. Tell us what your thoughts are and what you've heard so far this morning.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for having me, Miss Sandy. I hope it's okay calling you Miss Sandy.
Yes.
Yes. I like the contribution that I gave last week, Friday. I was driving to work last week, Friday.
Okay.
So it happened that today, you know, I was able to move around things, you know, and when we felt to me, it just worked well. I think based on the points that Mr. Michael echoed early is repeated statements which have been said. I don't think people fully understand how dire of a situation we are in when it comes to, you know, resources. So I noticed that Mr. Michael mentioned mental health. Ms. Sandy, if I asked you how many psychiatrists do we have in the Cayman Islands, it would be under 5, right? Now, in terms of our growing size of the population, we're estimated around to be 70,000 people, give or take. I'm using that number based off DVDL and the amount of cars that we have, right? So with that being said, we don't have enough psychiatrists. We don't have enough psychiatric nurses, you know, to deal with the onslaught of issues that we have on an ongoing basis. In terms of the education system, and that there is an issue, I wouldn't say the education is an issue, because I went to John Gray High School. You know, I'm a proud product of John Gray High School. But I think, like what Mr. Michael said, is where the avenues for individuals who don't go off island. Because I went off island, I had to do that because I realized that the only way to compete against foreigners, unfortunately, is that you have to get the skills outside of Cayman. Because when you look at the people that they're hiring, Miss Sandy, is people from America, people from Canada, and people from UK. And the years of experience that they're requiring, you cannot get that in Cayman, so to speak, unless you have something lined up or you're going to get a job once you get back. But in terms of trade schools, we need to have trade schools so that people can go into them. Not everybody can be a lawyer, not everybody can be an accountant. And with that being said, it doesn't mean that you should not go into those fields. It just means that in order for a population to be successful, you need to diversify it. So you need a mechanic, right? Lawyers need to get their cars fixed. Doctors need to get their car fixed. If the lawyer don't have the car, right, he can't go to the courtroom. If the doctor doesn't have a car, they can't see the patient that they're supposed to see. So there needs to be a structured balance. And I agree with Mr. Michael on that. In terms of immigration, I know everybody's always afraid to talk about immigration or work, but it's a two-edged sword situation, right? We have to face the fact that immigration is what is used to fund our coffers. Those 30,000 work permits that we have there now, that is what is using to fund us as a country. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, you then have to balance the Caymanians that need a job as opposed to cheaper labor. And that's what it boils down to. Yes, you're getting highly educated people, but it's a two-edged sword situation. So I think with work, they're doing a good job as they can do. But I think that we're hitting the ground running a bit too late. Unfortunately, but that doesn't mean we can't, project for the next 10 years and say, okay, hey, this is what we want done. We want to have a diverse, field of occupations and stuff like that. In terms of crime, I know I had some strong comments last week, Friday. I stand by those comments. I think the Commissioner of Police needs to have a stronger presence. I'm not asking for a dictatorship, but I'm just saying, we need to have more of a community effort. You need to have a police officer saying, oh, that Kevin, that Johnny, that Rudess on the block. The police officer should actually know their community. The fact that the police officers or some police officers don't know who's in the community, that is what is creating an issue. On top of that, Cayman has been closed for a year. So people would typically be working, and the case is when you don't have people working, what are they going to do when they're not able to find a job? What are they going to resort to? They're going to resort to something that's easy. Drugs might be it, so that's just my take on it. I think at the end of the day, we have to take the report seriously about the predisposing factors. We have to look at it. The government, it's easy to say, okay, the government, but I think we as a whole, in terms of community, we need to work along with the government and say, okay, what are we doing, right? What are we going to do to really get crime down? What are we going to do to educate Caymanians who are not able to go overseas? And how are we going to use the immigration/work to really meet the needs of our country while not jeopardizing Caymanians? So it's a difficult thing, and it's not something easy, but with proper planning, you are able to fix those issues.
Wow. Well, Jared, wow. How old are you, young man?
I am 23, Miss Sandra.
Yes, well, you had a lot to say, and your points have obviously been well considered, and I thank you for those comments. So hang in there. We're going to come back to you. Good morning, Alric, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Morning. I mean,
yes, a few comments coming in. One in, touching on Jared's point about mental health. Jared asked the question, which I think is a valid question. Not even just how many psychiatrists and psychologists we have available on the island, but any sort of specialist, whether it's like physiotherapy. Sometimes children are born into this world and they need a little bit extra help to reach their full potential. And those resources in Cayman appear to be very, very limited. So the things that we are spending money on and is not really, in my mind, where it should be. So my question is, and someone actually said, is Juju listening, referring to the Minister of Education, the Honorable Juliana O'Connor Connolly from Cayman Brac. This is her second term as Education Minister. And a lot of people, quite frankly, have not been impressed with her performance. I doubt she's listening, but perhaps someone else is listening that can then go back to her with some news. But how hard would it be? And, Alric and Michael can perhaps tell me this, but how hard would it be to have every single government school have at least one psychologist or psychiatrist at that facility on a full-time basis? So not one that goes to all the schools and trying to split their time and can't keep track of, who they're speaking to and all that sort of thing. I mean, how difficult would it be? We have one in prison. We have at least one or two in prison, although they keep having sex with the prisoners, which is a whole other issue. But, once the problem is developed and they're incarcerated, we can then afford to give them full comprehensive medical. We're going to give them some degree of training, maybe when they're not firing the training manager at the prison. And we're going to give them a professional psychiatrist or access to one. Why don't we do it before they reach that level? How hard could it be to have one in every single school? Do you guys think is this too much? Are we asking too much here?
We do have psychiatrists, Sandra. I mean, I worked in the Ministry of Education for 6 years.
Yes.
I can tell you that we have at least 12. My last count. All phenomenal people, all do a phenomenal job, all very well qualified, but they only do reports. And this was one of the things that we have discussed for years in the Ministry of Education. That's why I left in 2017. Because
so we have, let me just understand what you just said, Michael, because there are legit some things that just kind of blow my mind. So we have at least 12 psychiatrists or psychologists in the Ministry of Education. They don't go into classrooms. What do they do? What kind of reports are they writing?
They do assessments on children's behavior. So if a child is misbehaving or is showing signs of stress or some level of mental health issue, a psychiatrist steps in, or from behavior to, it could also be academic, right? We have some of the best psychologists in the region. These people are phenomenal people, very well qualified, but they will produce a 30-page report that goes on in someone's file. I've seen hundreds of psychological assessments that go nowhere. Right? The psychologist comes in, they do their job, they interview the child, they interview the parent, they interview the teachers, they interview the school staff, they put together a phenomenal report, they come back to the table, they say these are the resources that this child needs to learn or to reduce behavior. They make a referral to mental health that the kid can't actually get into because they don't have any health insurance, the child needs therapy, parent is unemployed, so they don't have access to that. All of these are barriers that we've put up. So when I hear you talk about psychologists, Sandra, we don't lack professionals in this country. What we lack at this point in time is actually a strategy and the will to do this. I've said it for 20, my theme haven't changed on how we're going to do this. there's no will to change this stuff. You know why? It doesn't happen at CIS. Doesn't happen at Cayman Bay.
So
those shootings don't happen, you know, in the most wealthy areas of our country. I mean, look at where those, like, I can tell you between 2005 and 2015, where all of these gun shootings have happened. It has never happened, you know, down in the houses that's worth $1 million, right? It doesn't happen down in there. So why would we resolve it? It's happening down in Central. It's happening down in the poorest neighborhoods, right? So yes, we have psychologists, and they're doing a great job, and they're producing all of these reports, but they don't do any therapeutic support work. They don't go into the classrooms and say, okay, you know, to the teacher, this stuff needs to happen. They do a report, they pass it on to the school, and they walk away.
Wow. I'm surprised to hear that, because we don't need more reports and more pushing a paper. I mean, I don't know.
That's what the process is. That's what the process is right now.
One viewer says, Michael, those people are described as desk managers or check collectors. I mean, they might do a good job writing reports. Another Kizzy makes the point that people are scared to talk about their mental health because they're oftentimes looked down upon, and we're scared. And when we talk about it, trust is broken, and then the stigma begins. So now this is an issue of, I guess, you know, dealing with, and this is why so many people don't want to even engage with a professional, because they're afraid that either that professional or other people will know that they're taking medication or know that they're getting psychological help. I mean, that could be a whole other topic on its own. How do we destigmatize mental health issues and get people to understand that everybody has problems and we all deal with it in different ways, and we all, you know, have some degree of mental health and mental well-being that we need professional help with. And I mean, there's nothing wrong. There's a whole, you know, slew of literature on why, in particular, Caribbean people, Afro-American people, African people don't understand the value of, or have always put a stigma on needing to speak to a professional, as though somehow that makes you a weak person. And I think it's quite the opposite. If you've never talked to a professional, if you've never sought counseling or help, you know, there's no way that you could be building up yourself, because sometimes you need the reserves and the expertise from other people. So Jackie Ebanks says, come on, guys, here's the problem. Alcohol outlets on every corner, 3 on Seymour Drive alone. Why are you not allowing some of the doctors out of University of the West Indies who have stated repeatedly that when a young man starts smoking weed as a teenager, they are at high risk for bipolar and schizophrenia, psychotic mindset, because of smoking weed as a teenager? How can they hold a steady job? And then the rest of her comment gets on. So alcohol venues and weed smoking, are these some serious concerns as it relates to criminality? Is this the cause of it?
Well, I haven't seen what I've seen discussed in the reports is alcohol abuse and drug abuse. But obviously one of the biggest killers is alcohol abuse. I don't know enough about weed to make that conclusion that it's weed, but I think sometimes we get lost on 1 or 2 points. What you'll find is Michael will mention a certain number of factors all the time. So, you know, when we talk about, you know, domestic abuse and violence and child abuse, criminality amongst your own family members, violence in social circles, peer pressure. And one of the last things Michael mentioned was socio-economic factors. So when people hear this, they tend to think, I mean, how do those little things go and affect some child and his decision to do a crime? You know, when Michael mentions it, when he does his reports, when the experts mention the same thing and do their reports, what happens is people just discard the importance of each of those factors and how they eventually influence a child into making a bad choice to do a crime, all these reports get put on the shelf. Like, you get an example. When we talk about mental health and we say a child needs certain treatment, and that child's mother or father or family is a poor family and does not have sufficient health insurance coverage, one of the problems is that the highest frequency of mental illness is related to depression, anxiety, etc. However, when it comes to the insurance coverage, they may only get one visit for the year. So we're talking about problems that exist, but the system that we have does not really support us resolving those problems. So one example is the insufficient health insurance coverage when it comes to dealing with mental illness. The other issue in the structure is a lot of these reports end up get placed on the shelf, and so they become like political footballs. And the other thing that Michael mentioned, which is very important, is the socio-economic factor. Now, you might say, if you live in a poor neighborhood, that don't mean that you're going to become a criminal. That don't mean that you're going to go to jail. But the facts from the research, so I'm talking about facts. So the facts from the research show that socioeconomic factors do have an impact on whether or not a young person might be exposed to crime. Because when you look at a low-income person, I'm not speaking in a blanket way, but from the research, it shows that a person in a low-income neighborhood might be committing a crime out of necessity, not that the person wants to commit a crime or the person is born a bad person, but it's because of the low-income situation. So I'll give an example. I've spoken to some young people where they have been actually trying to get a job in Cayman. And again, I'm not making an excuse for the crime. I'm telling you what the research is, and I'm telling you what the facts are. So young people who are actively trying to get jobs in Cayman, when they send in their resume, the resume is simply put in the garbage, or they've never gotten an acknowledgement of receipt of the resume. And so they keep trying, and then they reach out to politicians, they reach out to people that they know, they reach out to me. I forward their resume around, try to put in a good word for them. But at the end of the day, they still have to eat, they still have to survive. So yes, some bad choices are made, and they decide to, go sell numbers, which is currently illegal in Cayman, or they start selling weed. So it's easy when you're sitting on the hilltop, or you're living in a rich neighborhood. It's easy to look down and say, that can't be the solution. That can't be the reason why this person is doing it. But unfortunately, the research does say that these list of factors are the contributing factors to why people eventually make bad decisions and end up doing crimes. So those are just the facts. They're not emotions from me, not emotions from Michael, and not emotions from the experts. These are the facts that have been put forward, time and time again in front of the policymakers, in front of decision makers, and time again, the issues have been kind of brushed under the rug. When Michael mentions where crime occurs, this is hugely important, because let's look at the facts. If you look at the RCIPS report, you will see that there are about 30,000 incidents or calls made through 911 every year. And do you know where half of those 30,000 calls and incidents are? Georgetown. And I bet, and people don't, this is in all of Cayman, there are 30,000 calls and incidents, right? And so it's hard to believe that 15,000 of those, or half of those every year, are in Georgetown. And so, there is a relationship between the area that the crime is occurring and the income levels, the poverty level, there is a relationship. But you see, because it's not happening in your neighborhood, you don't see it as your problem, but it is your problem because eventually one of these people is going to end up in your home. So it's all our problem. We need to start seeing it that way. It is all our problem.
Yep, for sure. A few other comments, Alric. I'm glad that you mentioned the point of insurance, because someone else said that as well, that maybe, the lack of availability of coverage, insurance coverage, is one thing that hurts a lot of parents seeking help for their children. There's another person on WhatsApp who has chimed into the conversation. This person says this conversation is solid. I know a person now in maximum security in Northwood. The writing was on the wall since middle school. Probably before that as well, but definitely that person noticed it since middle school. Another commenter here says, also in the Black community, both in America and the Caribbean, there's a notion of talking to Jesus instead of getting professional help. I acknowledge that appears to be an issue, and that a lot of times religion seems to let people believe that that will be enough. I've seen people say that, oh, God has cured my bipolarism. And when I hear things like that, it leads me to understand that people themselves don't truly appreciate and know and understand that that is a chemical imbalance and something that you can, try to get medication for to help balance that out. But it's kind of disappointing that people still believe these sorts of things. And unfortunately, it means that it's going to be a deterrent or a hindrance to them getting the professional help that they need. This person goes on to say, further to Alec's point, I had a student who brought a knife to school and indirectly threatened me and other students. When he was reported and it was investigated, we found out that his mother openly pulls a knife out on the father whenever they get into disputes. So to the child, this is normal behavior. They then take that mentality and behavior out into society and become problems. Upbringing and culture does have an impact on crime. Also, this whole notion of no snitching, which is prevalent here, encourages this behavior. So let me just say one thing in relation to the home environment, because again, I know I keep going back to this point, and I speak a lot of times from personal experience. As children, we become what we know, and what we know is what we're exposed to. So if you're exposed to a dysfunctional household, if you're exposed to a household with violence, if you're exposed to a household where the parents don't know how to communicate and all they do is fight with each other, and even as a child, if your response, if the response from your parents or your single mother is every time you go to them with a problem or you get in trouble or something happens, is to just beat you and to yell and scream at you, as an individual, those are the skill sets that you learn in life. You don't know any other way to be. I mean, it's just as simple as that. You didn't grow up in an environment where people were taught, listen, everybody has a voice, everybody has an opinion. We can sit down and have a discussion without getting upset, without yelling, screaming, and cursing at each other, and that sort of thing. You've never learned those communication skills. So of course, that is what you take out into the world. And that's what you take to your own relationships, whether it's with your friends or not. And I know Caribbean people are really stuck on the fact that we have to beat our children into submission because, number one, we believe the Bible gives us the right to do that. And number two, we just grew up with that mentality. Most people do not make the connection between the slave trade and how we, as a product of that, would have been subjected to all sorts of abuses and abuses that, in the context of the Holocaust, for example, and of the Jewish community, there have been research done, and we know that trauma, physical trauma, psychological trauma, will change a person's DNA. Listen to me very, very carefully, because I've said this before, and I think it kind of goes over people's head. So violence can be so traumatic to you as a person and by extension as a people that it changes your DNA, something you have no control over, right? And it's not changing it for the better. So when we then talk about, well, why is there a greater instance of criminality in Caribbean households, in Latin and South American households, the violence is, we can't help but have to understand the connection between what a lot of those people went through, dating back hundreds of years. Their ancestors were slaves. If your parents' DNA was changed, that changes your DNA as well. Like, we don't want to have the conversation at that level, and how we try to then implement programs and do other things to try to counter the, horrific life experiences that our ancestors would have had to endure. And it wasn't that long ago. There are people who are still alive today who would have experienced lynchings in America, for example, in the 60s, and who have been exposed to systemic discrimination and abuse, but nobody ever wants to talk about it. Everybody's like, no, even in the Cayman context, we don't have any prejudices here. We're all one people. I think our inability to even acknowledge history for what it is and to understand how history plays a part even in who we are today is only to our own detriment. And why is it that Caribbean people feel the necessity to subject our children to more torture under the guise of, I'm going to beat you into submission? I mean, I've heard people say to their children, I brought you into this world, I'll take you out. And I'm thinking, okay, do you understand the message that you've just sent to your child? Number one, somehow you're saying that you would be willing to murder your own child, which is disgusting. Even if you don't mean that in a literal way, figuratively saying that is still problematic. You're continually teaching your child by forcing them to be a victim, by beating them, that is the only way that you can control a child. Michael, you've worked with a lot of children. Jared, I don't know if you grew up in a household where they believed in the strap. I mean, I think most of us did, but can you tell us, Michael, I don't know if you've ever done any research on this, but I've done a little bit, and the vast majority of people who are actually incarcerated grew up in those types of homes where they were beaten. So it's not like people are, if you'd beat that boy, he wouldn't be like that. Actually, he was beaten, and he's like that and worse, probably because he was beaten. Have you done any research specifically on our desire? Again, we talk about don't spare the rod, you spoil the child, right? And I've never seen anywhere in the Bible any biblical reference to the fact that a shepherd herder is actually beating his herd, the sheep, into submission. He guides them gently. The rod of correction is a physical rod that he uses to move them in the direction that he needs to go. And you do it from when they're young, and you consistently do it every single day. They don't beat the sheep. And yet we have taken from that a very different interpretation, that we can use the strap, we can use boards on our children, we can take tree limbs off of trees, beat our children, put physical marks on our children, and we see nothing wrong with that. Tell me, am I just crazy here, or what are we talking about?
All of the research points to a lot of what you just said, Sandra. Here's what my experience have been in the last 25 years in the Cayman Islands. The majority of the homes in this country is now single parent homes, primarily a single mother who's working a couple of jobs and making slave wages. So she's out of the home on a regular basis, and she doesn't have the time to raise her kids. So the streets raise the kids. Another thing this mom does is, because the father's not involved, and I can tell you, my mother did the same thing. I was raised in a single parent home, so I know, I can tell you, many moms overcompensate for a man not being involved. So they give their kids everything. Between birth and 12 years old, that trend continues. They give them the latest shoes. I've had moms who have bought their children cell phones, very expensive cell phones, but can't give them lunch money because they wanted their kids to fit in. They bought them $150 pair of shoes, but then have to sign up for Feed Our Future to get lunch, or they have to go to NEU to pay their rent, but their kids are wearing the latest shoes. So that's been my experience. But what has happened from 12 on, these youngsters, because many times they are unguided, so they get into a lot of mischief. They started smoking marijuana. I have kids as now young as 8 that starting to experiment with alcohol and drugs. You can also look at the NDC latest report, and this is what I've said. I'm not sure why NDC exists, because they push out loads of research that we never follow. We don't even implement it into our public school system, private school system, or our regular community. And NDC pushes out this report every 2 years, and they do. I think over 3,000 children are surveyed. They've gotten so great at doing this. They have now got have just kind of moved away from drugs and alcohol. They're now doing bullying, mental health, like they're doing loads of different topics. But what have happened is that at 12 years old, that kid starts to act up. And that parent is frustrated because they're working all the time. They're trying to keep a roof over their head. They're putting food on the table. But what they have never understood is that they've never really parented the kid. So what do they result to? The strap, the belt, to bring that kid back in line. Well, they have 12 years, Sandra, of dysfunctional behavior. They have 12 years of not parenting. So when I have parents that call me all the time, they feel that I have some magic pill. Oh, I heard that you're good with kids. So they bring a kid to me and they expect me to wave a wand or put some
12 years
over their head in an hour, and I'm going to fix them. And I have to explain to that parent, no. Other things need to now happen. And they also believe that they can continue living their same lifestyles. But bring their kid to me and I'm going to fix them. And I'm saying it can't work that way. There has to be changes at home. You actually have to spend some time with your kid.
Yeah.
Really?
And it's a collective effort. So this is where now the parenting, as you rightfully say, factor becomes critical. Children can't fix themselves when they haven't really broken themselves either. So here's a few... Sorry, Jared.
Yes, I've noticed something, and I'm not calling out Caymanian women on this, but what I've noticed...
I'll call them out. That's what we're here for today, to call everybody out.
I have to ask the question, when most Caymanian women have children at a young age, they don't want to change their lifestyle. They still want to go party. They still want to go to the club. They have the kid. They leave the kid at grandma's house, and they expect the child to be a cookie cutter academic person. It doesn't work that way, and it's going on with what Mr. Michael is saying. But Miss Sandra, at the end of the day, what we want is that we want a government that's going to fight for us, right? I'm deviating off topic, but like the minimum wage, Miss Sandra, $6. That must be driving some people mentally insane, because if you do not have a living wage to pay your bills, how are you going to mentally cope? You know how much it costs for insurance? Insurance is greater than how much you're supposed to get for your minimum wage, and that needs to go up, and that needs to be a discussion. And I'm not calling out any government, but I know Parliament is in session today, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to be tuning in to see what this government is going to be saying. But we need to do this right. And the thing about Cayman is not getting job, Miss Sandra, why is the bar keep moving? And I notice nobody's saying this, but Mr. Michael might have alluded. The bar keeps moving. You have a bachelor's, you come to Cayman as a Caymanian, you can't get no job. As a matter of fact, if you are a psychologist, you have a master's. Miss Sandra, that same job that you spoke about at prisons, it's being marketed right now. It's being marketed right now on government website. And to that, why is it that you have to have all these requirements just to get a job? I know it makes you qualified and competent, but it is hard. Like to get a job, you be an intern in a position. You've been interning. You're not going to get no job, Miss Sandra. And Caymanians are having a very hard time getting a job, and it shouldn't be this difficult. It shouldn't be this difficult. You have these,
you know what else?
Recruitment agencies. You have these recruitment agencies, stepping stones, or whoever stone they step in, and you submit your resume. No call, Miss Sandra. But the person in the UK
yeah,
who got a little accent and whatever, oh yes, we bring in that person in for what? And you
and
had
sometimes no experience, less experience.
no experience whatsoever.
You know, it's one thing when we make the argument that, okay, Caymanians need to upskill and they need to train, they need to get educated. And trust me, no one is more of a believer in that than me. That's why I'm overeducated, really, right? That's why I have 3-4 degrees. But at the same time, I know for a fact that there are people who are highly qualified, come with all the certifications and degrees necessary and the experience, and someone is still chosen over them. One example that I gave some months ago was the prison chef. They had a Caymanian who had some kind of, I don't even know what the name of the culinary degree is, right? Some kind of expertise. And so when she came in and she interviewed, she said, you know, given the certifications that I have, the level that I'm at, this is my expectation in terms of salary. Because she was at the higher end of that government pay scale, they basically told her no, they couldn't pay her that. What did they do? Go turn around and recruit a guy from Scotland or the UK, whatever, who is alleged to have a relationship with some of the senior management from that same area of the world at the prison. They coach him on what to say and what to do during his interview. He gets the job. Listen to this now. He gets the job that the Caymanian couldn't get. So they re-advertise the position, hire an expat into the position, and here's the icing on the cake. What's his salary? He gets the same damn salary that she was asking for that they wouldn't give to her as a Caymanian who have more pieces of paper than him, more certified than him, but somehow they gave it to him. And this is where I'm like, why? Who signs off on this? Why is this even allowed? Like people, this is government. So government isn't looking at the recruitment process for people that they're hiring and saying, no, this isn't going to work. You had a more than qualified Caymanian, someone who was more qualified, et cetera, et cetera. You know,
and immigration need to review that. Immigration need to say, no,
this isn't even immigration. This is government.
But this is the thing. And you know what the thing, Miss Sandra, this is the problem with government. Government feels that anybody that's outside of Cayman's borders is Jesus. At the end of the day, you're supposed to be hiring the best Caymanian, not the best American, not the best British, UK person, not the best Canadian, the best Caymanian. And that is where we're losing, because you think just because you bring in somebody from UK, them British people can't even cook no good food, and then prisoners probably going to be suffering. But that's not the point. The point is, the best Caymanian should be hired, and the best Caymanian must be hired. And I don't know why. And government, this is where it gets government in a negligent position, because how can they tell work employers to say, okay, hire Caymanians when they're not hiring Caymanians?
They need to set the example.
They need to set the tone. And as a matter of fact, immigration can do something, because immigration is supposed to be enforcing the law. As far as I'm concerned, immigration need bring some vehicle and say, listen, you gotta go. Sorry, we have a Caymanian. Go. Yeah. Because that's just unacceptable.
Here's really what a mother, a single mom has said, 1 hour to talk to a therapist is CI $180, 1 hour. She says, Cayman counseling is crap. Told me that I didn't need her help, even after diagnosed with depression. I had to pick up my big girl panties and go through 2 years of alcohol abuse. And only because a friend from overseas noticed my drinking and Facebook posts that I realized that I had a problem. We're all screaming for help. Only difference is in me is I'm stronger than I look, and I have friends and family that boldly told me to straighten up, and I listened. He's on point. We try harder as a single mom, and it's wrong. I did it with my first son. Yep, love this man. I think referring to Michael in his comments. So another person says, I've dealt with hundreds of students. They say, but Michael, I agree with your point about overcompensating. But what about those parents who resent their children? I've dealt with hundreds of children and parents over the years, and I'm convinced that many people, especially women, have children because they felt that that was going to hold the man. And when they see the child can't hold the man, they take out their resentment on their children. There needs to be a complete shift in our culture here, especially Black culture here in Cayman about beating children too. I disagree with the minimum wage comment, as the community always pays for minimum wages in negative ways. But to his point about Cayman parents wanting to live the same lifestyle, many of these parents are only repeating what they themselves saw when they were brought up. Hence why there needs to be a culture shift. We need to push more of the entrepreneurial culture here than going to work for someone. I think this will help with the whole unemployment issue for young Caymanians. And here's a typical job advert. We're looking for someone with 10 years experience, a master's in basket weaving, who must speak English, Spanish, Dutch, and Chinese for $20,000 per annum. If they happen to find a Caymanian who can fit all of those requirements, they either tell them they're overqualified or they hire them and work them to the bone. Then when they find out that when they find who they really want for the position, they fire the Caymanian, hire the expat, and raise their pay. Employers don't have to report salary changes when hiring expats.
Sandra, all that we have described this morning is what the Cayman experience have been like. And I know, because I hear a lot of folks in and outside government, from chamber to other organizations, talk about, we need to tell our story, we need to tell our story. Mm-hmm. But every time folks like myself and people like Alric and a number of other folks start to talk about what our story is, mm-hmm. we're shut down, and I'm called anti-government or anti-Cayman or anti-expat or anti-this or anti-that. Mm-hmm. That's why I have reserved myself to doing the job. My goal is always been service. I just want to do the job. I want to serve Caymanians as I was served when I was coming up, and that's what it has been. But getting back to the whole gang violence stuff, if we believe that we are going to solve this by the National Security Council implementing more police, building a bigger prison, and putting more prison officers out there, it is not going to be resolved. So here's what's going to happen. We are going to end up that budget of about $700 million. Crime is going to start to eat into quite a bit of that. And we will become like the US, where the monies will have to come from somewhere because we don't have direct taxation. So we're going to have to start taking that money away from education, community development, to feed the prison system and the police department. Mm-hmm. And then what's going to happen is that our society, especially our more vulnerable communities, they are going to become more crime infested because it's going to be no development. Over the last 25 years, I have seen that played out time and time again. So when people always ask me about when these shootings happen, are they random? They're not random. Like I told you in a text message the other night, they can lock up all the gangsters. Their children are coming up. Their children are coming up without dads, without guidance, and they're becoming the new gangsters. All of these youngsters who have been shot, I've seen them on Facebook holding guns, and yet we're shocked that all of a sudden they are actually they've actually died or they're in the hospital, right? Why are we shocked anymore? 10 years ago, I sent the Ministry of Education, because I was working there, we went school to school and we identified with 600 children that we knew had significant mental health issues, parents in prison or on drugs or some other dysfunction. And I said, we need to continue to watch these kids and protect and reduce some of their vulnerabilities. But when they get out of school, if we're not careful, these kids are going to turn to crime. Every single generation for the last 15 years, people have not proven me wrong. These kids have ended up in a court or criminal system, or they've ended up dead or incarcerated for many, many years. So when I hear people talk about, oh my God, they're shooting each other again, this will die down, son. I guarantee you this will die down, because I've just told you some of the last shootings that have happened was in 2015. It takes between 5 or 6 years, and kids are coming of age. It'll die down again because we're going to throw millions of dollars in police and prison at this, and it will go back down. Then next 5 years, it'll rear its head again, and you'll call me and say, Michael, can we talk about this stuff all over again? But what we don't talk about is all the vulnerabilities. We don't talk about poverty. And as Jared said, we don't talk about the unemployment or the lack of opportunities. right? We are all saying this all same thing. To solve crime, we need to fix our unemployment system, our welfare system, our public education system. If we want to do this, that's what it is. If we don't want to do this, let's continue throwing police at it. But that's not going to change it, right? I have to run. I have a program that I need to get to. Sandra, it's always a blessing to be on your show. I would love to sit down and talk to you more on a personal basis, show you some of these reports, because I think that you need to see them, not just me sending you a list of them. I think you need to actually see it for yourself and read through some of this, because I think once you see this stuff, you will put all of this stuff together from 2000 to 2020. Right? That's what I want to show you. So you can see it for yourself. So I don't have to sit down and regurgitate all of this stuff up every 5 years when all of this stuff comes up. You can now speak based on, I've seen this stuff for myself. But I will tell you, all of the personnel that we need is in this country in their Cayman. To fix this problem, we don't need to bring in another consultant to fix this problem. Everybody is in this country to fix crime, or prevent crime, or provide early intervention in crime. So do not let anybody tell you that we need to hire another consultant to give us another $1 million report. That's not true. Alric, always great to be with you on the show. Jared, nice meeting you. Keep up the great work. I need to run. Have a great day, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, Michael. So Michael's got to get to work. He's got some clients that he needs to be working with. We have Blissful Powell, who said this morning's show has me in tears because this is all of the true factors and we need to change for our children ASAP. I know because I have the burden myself. So yes, please continue to feed this to our leaders because we need change. Jackie talks about unemployment. She says that she has a construction company and the construction industry is booming. I've tried to tolerate our young men coming to work today, missing tomorrow, then have to come back to the site and find them smoking weed in the back of my property. So why are we not accepting there is a problem? Number one, weed issues with our teenage boys. Number two, why are we not accepting that many of our parents and children is not accepting that many of our people lack drive? Kizzy doesn't agree. She says to stop blaming it on the weed, that you know nothing about it. But you have so much to say, do your research. Yes, young children shouldn't partake in it, but it doesn't cause anything. You just pointed out. So, I mean, this question of weed, I don't know that the weed is the problem. I think the fact that a young person would have no desire to do anything else with their life but sit down and smoke all day is the problem. Because if they're not smoking weed, they'd be doing something else. They're going to be drinking alcohol. So maybe
Sorry? If the police... The weed can be a problem depending on which side you look at it. If the police touches you right now, you're going to get locked up for that weed. And that's just another mouth to feed in prison, unfortunately. And that could be a father that could have been needed in a home. And I think that structure, the family structure is really important. But I just wanted to say the weed is important. If every Caymanian, for example, was caught with weed, they would be in prison.
Jackie goes on to ask why more people are not in Michael's trade school. Why are they not enrolled? Where's the initiative in the drive? Well, I mean, I don't know. Jared, tell me something. Where do young people get their initiative and drive from? Is it not from the parents teaching them throughout their entire lives that instead of just giving them these fancy phones that we're talking about and shoes and this and that they have to work for stuff. They need to, if they want a couple of dollars, they're going to have to work for it. They're going to do chores. I mean, you don't just wake up one day and be like, oh, I'm now 18 years old. I'm an adult. No one has ever taught me the value of anything, but I understand the necessity to go out there and work for it. Am I missing something here?
If it's not told to you at a young age that you need to work hard for what you want, then unless the young person realizes that, okay, all right, if I want to get A to B, I need to put in some work. And I think based on what the individual is involved in, like for me, I was involved with the Cadet Corps from, an early age. And for me, I was very big about promotion personally. And I was like, oh, if I want that promotion, I need to work. I need to commit. I need to show up, right? those basic skills of like, okay, you go to a job. Yeah, you don't want to be at the job really, but you need the money. You need to show up. You need to be there. You need to, as a young person, at the end, it can be just so much being a young teenager because your brain is still developing, you're in a system. Most young people don't like being in school, honestly, but they know that they're there because it is just the requirement, the government mandates it. And you know, if you don't have mentors saying to you, hey, you do this, keep up the good work, I see you working hard. I think that constructive reinforcement and positive reinforcement into young children saying, hey, you can be whatever you want to be, keep going, I think that goes a far way. Because for me personally, if I didn't have people saying that to me or supporting me, I don't think I'd be at this level that I'm at. And I think if I wasn't participating in like youth parliament, cadets, being involved in school, extracurricular activities, then I don't think I'd be where I'm at today. So, yeah.
Yeah, wow. So Purple Rain says, I'll never understand how Barbara got elected over Alric and Sabrina over Michael. I guess people would rather settle for second best or much less. Shaking my damn head. Jonathan says weed is not the problem. If the people want facts, 90% of all car accidents is because of alcohol. 90% of fights and domestic abuse is because of alcohol. And 90% of people smoking weed are probably sitting on the porch playing video games and eating Burger King. I think, Jonathan, the point that she's making is that those people are not being productive. And without a doubt, you know, I know that this debate isn't about marijuana, but the smoking of weed for anyone who's under 30 really is a problem in terms of the development of their mind and even their mental health. There's lots of research out there to show that the younger you are when you engage in marijuana smoking, it's not going to have these benefits that everyone keeps, you know, trying to toot as it relates to marijuana. It actually has quite the opposite effect. But I'll leave that for you guys to go out there and read. Laura is asking a very good question, which we discussed in last week's program. With Alric about the Yolanda Ford report. And Alric actually sent us the link for that report. And, you know, we are on the cusp of starting a book club here on CMR on our platform. And we're going to be delving into what I hope will be a lot of really interesting books for us. And last week when we were talking about the Yolanda Ford report, it occurred to me, we already had our first book actually picked out, which was related to some good habits at work. But maybe what we really need to do is read the Yolanda Ford report together as our first book. Alric?
The report as a first book, that's pretty long.
Well, hey, it's important, so we'll work through it.
Yeah, I mean,
Sandy says the courts need to force parents to play more physical, I think she might pay more physical attention, spend quality times with kids, not just pay a couple of dollars, which still can't help out over their expenses. How does the court force you to spend time with your child if that's not what you want to do? Like, I think I don't know how that would work, Sandy.
I just want to mention that, you see, there's some, so I used to sit on the parole board, and there's certain factors that are considered by the board in determining, you know, whether someone should be released back into the community. And all of the things that the board has to consider is settled under the law, right? So, you know, one of the first things that the board looks at is whether it's no longer necessary for the protection of the public that the person should stay in jail. That's one thing. And the board also looks at the risk of the prisoner reoffending. And then the last thing is whether the board feels that the prisoner is capable of complying with the conditions of release. The reason I mention this is that in looking at these different things to determine when a prisoner is released, guess what? The board looks at reports which details the same factors that we mentioned earlier that are raised in the research that impact whether a person is going to be exposed to crime or ending up in crime. So isn't that weird that that the same factors that are addressed in reports years ago for young people, predisposing them to crime, those are the same factors that a parole board looks at to determine whether a person can be released in society. So it means something, right? So I know that people tend to simplify things and go, well, why that person just don't get off their backside and go to work? Well, it's not actually that straightforward. To you, it may be that straightforward because you may be in a set of circumstances that you don't have to deal with a lot of these factors. You don't have to live with someone beating your mother every single day. You don't have to live with someone who's a drug addict in your home every day. So let's look at where you're coming from also when you're making the statements, because it just may seem straightforward and simple to you. But if it was so straightforward and simple, then why is it that this list of factors has been noted by researchers across the world as being contributing factors to crime? Why are all those factors listed if it's simply a matter of getting off your backside and going and getting a job? I don't think it's that simple. I think mental health issues and alcohol abuse are some very serious issues that we have to pay attention to, that we have to take steps to resolve, like we need to stop talking about it. We need to start doing something about it. And I do see that there's some new mental health facilities going up in Cayman. And I mean, yes, it's very late, but I'm glad it's happening. I'm glad that some people are going to finally have a place to go to help address those issues. But again, what we mentioned earlier was there are still structural issues that we have in terms of insurance, that people need to have the adequate insurance in order to get assistance with their mental health issues. So like I say, the factors have been researched, the factors have been discussed. It's up to us now to decide whether we are actually going to address those factors, and we're going to take steps to do something about it. Because I keep saying, it's not one young person's problem or this guy's problem from Windsor Park. It's all our problem. We need to look at it that way, So unfortunately, we're going to keep repeating the same conversation about these factors that are raised globally and been raised in Cayman Island reports, consultant report paid for. They're going to continue to be raised until we start taking action.
So Jess says that the Yolanda Ford report was a waste of money, and it's a shame that it's just sitting there catching dust all of these years. I certainly hope that this government pulls it out of hiding. Wanda mentions that learning disabilities and behavioral development in children leads to other issues down the road that are not being addressed. Charles agrees with Michael and says, and who were responsible for making sure that things you're talking about get done? Answer, Caymanians. Biggest problem is all of this is the weakness of Caymanians, cowardness, selfishness, self-hate. Until the Caymanian people grows a spine, nothing is going to change. Caymanians don't stand up against injustice. Most hate the true Caymanians, see what is wrong, but as long as it isn't on their doorsteps, it's not their problem. Root cause of crime is poverty, lack of, and then it got cut off. Lulu, good morning. Good morning, Shireen. Shireen says, talk up the things, young man. Miranda is also giving Jared a shout out, saying, young man, I'm impressed at your level of intelligence at your age. The sky is the limit. Good morning, Miss Sue. Happy birthday. She's here on her birthday, sharing her birthday with us. She says, one of my grandsons got into work replacement, must be work placement program with CUC, did 9 months, 2 days a week, learned a lot, no pay, thinking that he'd be kept on for summer and maybe then be paid. He was told to apply online for the summer job. He did that to then they didn't even have the decency to talk to him. He didn't get it, so very unfair. They took the boy whose family worked there, so damn sad. Yes, thank God, not 17 yet, and he's got a scholarship for UCCI in August, but he wanted to try to earn a few dollars to help his mom buy things too, and then it got cut off. We're told that he was too young to apply for public works. Lulu says there's no longer immigration department. Works now handles all the functions. Yes. Government says Wanda's part of the problem and not the solution. Elizabeth says, remember the stigma Caymanians don't want to work. That's very broad brush they have painted on us, especially by those employment agencies. Good morning, Eddie. How are you? He says it's nothing for Cayman. People don't have no say. Well, we're having a say now, and we're taking our say. Jonathan says the entirety of the justice system is and of Cayman is by definition of contrived construct and stated contractual obligation to by dictate, not beholding to and held solely accountable to the interests and well-being of the Cayman Islands and her people to the explicitly stated exclusion of any and all others. This colonial construct is subjugation, is a dereliction of duty to the Cayman Islands and her people. Jonathan, break it down so the common person can understand you now. Using some big words there that some people might be like, what did he just say? You had a lot to say and it made sense, but remember your audience. Thanks again, Charles. Johan is here. Johan says some work permit job adverts are geared towards hiring a preferred candidate or renewing the work permit of existing staff. Not all businesses operate like that, but many do and are not interested in a fair or objective application and hiring process. And again, Works, which is formerly immigration, is supposed to have compliance officers who are looking at these tailor-made job adverts with a view to stamping them denied. And how much of that is actually happening, I do not know. Johan says that he sat on the business staffing board from 2005 to 2009, and nobody in charge or in EXCO were interested in doing things the right way and being fair, objective, and professional because promises had been made to protect certain interests and persons that donate to political parties or campaigns. What a hot mess. Mallory says it's so blatantly obvious when these job adverts for work permits are tailor-made and it should be illegal. Well, it is illegal, but again, enforcement seems to be the issue. So we have a lot of comments coming in. Thank you so much. Damien, Samantha, Johan says, why is being pro-Cayman and fighting for what's best for Cayman and Caymanians always a problem for people in leadership? Well, I don't know. So someone mentioned earlier that the Legislative Assembly is meeting today. This is, I think, the first substantive meeting since they got elected, really, other than some housekeeping stuff. And they're going to actually be presenting. So this is the first meeting of the 2021 to 2022 session of the Cayman Islands Parliament. The Cayman Islands Government Strategic Policy Statement, also known as SPS, for 2022 to 2024 is going to be delivered. So Parliament will be beginning at 10 a.m. and will run until it's adjourned. We will carry the live feed here, folks, so make sure that you tune in after the program. Again, it's one of those things where if you're not interested in the runnings of your government and what is happening, then, how can you hope to affect any change? We talk about politics as though politics is somehow a separate entity and a separate aspect of our lives, when the real truth is Cayman is so incredibly small, and even in larger jurisdictions, the actions of the politically elect, their actions or non-actions, because a lot of times they're doing nothing, which is causing a problem, is critically important to us. And that is why we, the people, need to be engaged and involved in the process. So it starts with electing officials that you believe have the best interests of the people of the Cayman Islands at heart. And someone, commented that they thought the country missed the mark, at least in two specific, districts, probably more. A lot of people thought that Red Bay could have done with a change as well. And you take the opportunity then away from people who really they're disruptors in the sense that it's not going to be the status quo. It's not going to be business as usual. So no, they haven't been in there for 25 years, but these lifelong politicians that we keep electing, part of the issue with them is they get too comfortable. And yes, they're oftentimes, in the back pockets or being controlled by other people. So I think it's high time that we start to really consider who we're electing to public office. And then in addition to that, holding them accountable regardless of who they are, right? So yes, Alric was unsuccessful. Alric continues to be here and he continues to want to be part of the solution, as does Michael. And I think that says a lot about someone's desire for change and what their true intentions are. You can always tell someone who's just running for office for all the wrong reasons because number one, they disappear. As soon as they don't get in, you don't hear another word from them. Most of them change their phone numbers. You can't reach them. You can't talk to them. They're not going to respond to your messages. People who continue to hit the pavement and continue to talk about the issues, the social issues and otherwise that we need to discuss, in my opinion, are people who really do care to be part of the solution. And, if you don't give them an opportunity to be elected, they are still showing that they can still contribute in some meaningful way. Rory, good morning, says, why would young Caymanians even want to engage in the system and society set up by the last 20 years of leadership? They're seeing the country sold from under them and have been completely ignored in decision-making and solutions. Well, that goes back to what I was just saying. It's all about who you've elected, right? Louis, thank you for joining us from Detroit. He says, if they were to make alcohol illegal like cannabis, the island would be empty. Everyone leaves. Accidents would be reduced because there's less people drinking on the highways. What a mess. Miss Mary, thank you for joining us. Miss Mary says, I agree wholeheartedly with Purple Rain, with both Alric and Michael Myles. They're both intelligent guys and should have been a more fitting candidate than the two lady members mentioned. Why we always choose the less qualified is beyond comprehension. Wow, what a hot mess. Jackie again. Thank you, Jackie. You're very engaged this morning. Johan is extremely engaged as well. So Laura makes mention of the report and being 200 and something pages. I mean, we don't have to obviously read every page, although it probably wouldn't hurt us to do so. But I do think that we need to go through the report. It's been there collecting dust for too long, and most of us, to be quite frank, have never read it. And so we don't even know what's in it. We don't even know what it says. So maybe it's time we dust it off. We have electronic copies available, folks, so you don't have to literally dust it off, but we can still speak to it, yes? So let me see if I can find the link again. Yes, I've got the link here from last week, Friday, when Alric was on the program. He was kind enough to share the link. So I'm going to put it in the comment section again, and hopefully you guys will be able to click on that and get access to it. Ms. Paula, thank you so much for joining us. Paula Rose says, PWD and NRA is hiring every nationality except the young Caymanians who need to be given a chance. It's like this, Sandy. It's who you know and who knows you. How sad works is not seemingly to be working for the general Caymanians' best interests at heart. So discouraging. The new pack must be the change we voted and hoped for. All right. Well, we will certainly see. So, folks, click on that link and you can get a copy of the report for yourselves. And Jared, we're about to wrap up the program here. I want to thank you so much again for being on with us this morning. I think it's, wonderful that a young person is engaged and interested in these issues. What do you see as the way forward? What do you think we need to do next?
I think the best way forward now would be to actually put our feels into the ground and start doing the heavy lifting. I will make some side comments. I'd be optimistic if anything changes in terms of what has already been put in place. If people are unaware, whatever the policy is, it's determined by the government. So the government does nothing, that's a policy because of their inaction to do anything. If they do something, it will either create new direction. But in terms of the crime, we need to learn to parent better. We need to get our kids involved in social programs, youth organizations, notably. We need to fund the mental health department. I noted that Mr. Michael said that there are psychologists in every school. While that may be the case, there's still a working population. And the people that are in the working population, there isn't enough, what I should say, support by the psychiatric department to cover the working population. I do know for a fact that psychiatrists are caught up in reports, especially if those reports have to go to the court. And that can take, let's say, a day or two to do just a report. So if you have, let's say, a 30,000 working population and 2-3 psychiatrists in the mental health department for 30,000 people, that's not going to work. But, you know, to the note that the individual said in regards to why would young people want to get involved? By not getting involved, you're doing a disservice, because what he is pretty much saying is that, oh, don't do anything. I don't agree with that statement. If Alric Lindsay didn't challenge Barbara Connolly, he wouldn't be the CPA he wouldn't be the chairman of the CPA, and that's probably one of the most
of the NRA.
Is the NRA? Sorry, NRA of the NRA. I think that's monumental. If he didn't do that as a young person, he wouldn't be there. So I don't get that comment, and I don't like that comment. But I think young people need to actively go out. They need to be watching their MP, PP clock. Look 4 years down the line on, okay, who I have on my roster. They said this in Parliament, whatever. Okay, that grade the people while they're doing the work. Don't grade them on the manifestos. I know I'm hitting up politicians here. Don't grade them on the manifesto they present that year, but grade them on the work they did for those 3-4 years. If PACT not doing nothing for 3-4 years and just looking good and talking and whatever, you're gonna be voted out. Because I don't want them to get comfortable to think that, oh, because we're young and, you know, no, come. You have to come with it. We're grading y'all, and you need to do the work. That's just the simple facts. So, like I said, when it comes to the crime, we need to do the heavy lifting. It should not be tolerated. It's going to degrade our society, and we're going to have some negative effects if we don't start now. We need to start doing the heavy lifting. So those are my comments.
All right, Jared, thank you so much. Alric, some final comments from you this morning. Obviously, you know, a lot of people remain disappointed that you were not elected. I mean, ultimately, the people, you know, of Georgetown South made a decision to keep Barbara in office. A lot of people, you know, didn't feel that that was the right decision necessarily, but you're staying the course in terms of focusing on solutions for this country. What do you see as the way forward? And by the way, let me just ask you a question, because I know during the election, you were very much involved in this group. I forget their name now. We didn't quite get invited to any of their events, but I think they were trying to focus on some politicians. But this organization that works with special need parents, what was the name of that group?
Inclusion came out.
Inclusion came out. I haven't heard anything about them in their efforts since the election. I mean, were they just gearing up just for the election and then now it's died down and it's disappeared, or are they still meeting? What are they still doing? I mean, I'm curious to know. But, you know, one of the issues that they brought to the forefront is this concern about what's available by way of services for special needs children, how limited insurance can be. And so that if you can't afford to pay for it out of pocket, unfortunately, your children will be at a disadvantage. You know, do we need to move to a system where certain things like mental health care, maybe there shouldn't be any limit on how much counseling you can get? A number of months ago, I mentioned on this program that in the US, you can now go into a CVS pharmacy and there will be a mental health professional sitting there offering their services, because the traditional means of calling and trying to make an appointment meant that you'd have to wait months in order to see someone. And as people continue to struggle with their mental health issues during this pandemic, it becomes more difficult to be able to wait for months. If you're suicidal in this moment, in a day you could be dead. Months could be extremely detrimental to your well-being. So they have initiated a program where mental health professionals are actually sitting in a pharmacy, and someone can walk in and see them almost on the fly if they're not dealing with another patient. You can wait a few minutes and see someone. I'm wondering if we shouldn't think about adopting some of those more proactive measures. What are your thoughts?
So first of all, Inclusion Cayman was not a election gimmick. It actually was under a different name. I think it had the word disabilities in the name before. And so this was actually just a name change. So yeah, they're still around, and I'll include their website on your page.
Okay.
So yeah, they're still there to help support kids that are differently abled. So yeah, they haven't gone away.
Okay.
Just sharing some information on there, but I would echo the things that Jared is saying. I think that one of our issues is we know what are the factors that are addressed every couple of years, not just here but globally. We know all the factors. The question is, why is it that we are turning a blind eye to the factors, or we're saying that it's something else? That's a serious question, So part of it is our will as a community. Our willingness to say this is the problem and we're going to deal with it. And then the other part of it is the political will. So the politicians knowing what these reports say and having paid for them and then put them on the shelf. I just don't understand why there's a lack of will on so many sides. As long as that exists, some people can't resolve their alcohol issue on their own. They can't resolve the violence that they see in their home and how it impacts them on their own. So as long as there's a lack of will on so many sides, we can't really, as a society, expect people who are going through trauma to just magically resolve their own issue. So there needs to be involvement on all sides, but we first have to accept that there's a problem and then actually tackle the problem. I know that some people are trying, but they don't have sufficient resources in some cases. So my bottom line is, let's tackle the problem. We've talked about it so much. I think we're come to a point where we're educated on the factors, and where we're at now is we need to just take action. To me, that's what needs to be done, is to tackle the problem. We've done enough talking. Let's just tackle the problem now. Okay.
Thank you so much for those comments. And folks, last night we aired a wonderful segment, in case you missed it, with Mr. Richard, aka Dick Arch, and Mr. Bernard Watler. Man, the response has been amazing to those interviews. I'm just checking the numbers here to see how many people have actually watched it thus far. It's a lot. Sorry. So it's over 6.1 thousand views already. I'm going to share the link here in case you guys missed it. in the comment section so that you can go and have an opportunity to watch it. Just a snippet of our history. I mean, these are men in their 80s who have, you know, helped to contribute to Cayman in different ways. And now they're sharing some of their experiences. Every single person in the comment section has been begging me to please, you know, do more of these. And we are. In fact, this particular segment, which was recorded on Monday afternoon, was just a very impromptu thing. We've been planning to do these conversations with segments. And Mr. Uncle Dick there can tell you that I've been talking to him for a little while about it. And there's a whole list of people, both men and women in our community. I want to start with the older ones first for obvious reasons, because, you know, they're not going to be with us forever. And their memories are still so incredibly sharp that I want to hone in on that as much as possible. But yeah, everyone loved this segment. You know, Christine says, love this segment on Cayman history. Thanks, Sandy. So much feedback. Marva was watching it this morning. She said that she got her coffee out and she said, wow, I'm happy sitting with my coffee, listening to this interview at Papa Arch. I love it. Keep up the great work, CMR. So a lot of positive feedback on these, and we will be continuing to do them. We do have sponsorship for the first 3 segments from an organization. So we'd like to give a big shout out to Minds Inspired, which they're sponsoring these segments. And so, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's something that we've wanted to do and we will continue to do, because again, I'm a firm believer. And if you don't know your history and you don't know where you're coming from, you certainly can't plan for your future and probably even, you know, do well in your present life. So Jared, Alric, Michael, who had to leave because he's got to get to work. Thank you guys so much for participating in the program today. Thank you, Alric, for sharing the information for Inclusion Cayman. We're hoping that we can hear more about their upcoming activities. I know that they were very active, obviously, in trying to get people involved and asking some of the right questions about what needs to happen in this community in terms of care for people who are different abled. You know, they're just different, and being different isn't a bad thing. So Jared, I hope that you'll be a regular fixture on this program. It was occurring to me this morning that I need to tap into you for a youth program, which we're also keen to get started here in 2021. So my goodness, so many things on the CMR board of accomplishments that we want. I was freshening up my my desire of you know, the next 6 months, my goal list for CMR, and there's a lot of big things on it, but you know what? We can accomplish big things. So never doubt yourself, young man, Jared, never doubt how much you can do and how much you can contribute. And when people say no, as Aunt Lottie's pearls of wisdom, where there's a will, there's a way. So as long as you've got the willpower, you will find a way to make it true. You've just got to be positive. Have a plan of action. Sometimes you've got to go back to the drawing board and you've got to think about, you know, what you're trying to accomplish and how you hope to get there. But if CMR is not a shining example of, you know, naysayers and how far you can come in even just a short space of time, then I don't know what is. Don't let other people put barriers in front of you and dictate what your story is going to be. That's the one message I would say to young people. And even our young folks out there who are involved in this gang activity, who are involved in violence, you know, that doesn't have to be how your life will end. It's not too late for you to turn it around. As far as I'm concerned, as long as you are breathing, you still have an opportunity to set a different course for yourself. And so if any of those young men are listening to the program, I want to say to you that as a Caymanian and, you know, part of this community and this society, we've not given up hope on you. You can change. And listen to me when I tell you, it breaks my heart as a Georgetowner, as a Caymanian, to see so many of you going down this path. And I understand, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional here, but I honestly understand where you're coming from and the struggles that you faced as children. I know the dysfunctional homes. I understand the abuse. I understand the absentee parents and the broken homes. And, you know, you're lucky if you had one parent that was present. But what I'm saying to you is None of those things have to break you in life. None of those things have to force you down the wrong road. None of those things have to make you want to take somebody else's life to somehow justify and make up for what you've gone through, right? We are products of that environment. I know what I'm talking about. I know where you're coming from. And I'm telling you, you can turn your life around. You have choices every single day that you can make that are going to end in a positive way. Don't cut your life short. Don't cut the lives of other people short because of, the pain that you have suffered at some point in your lifetime. Reach out for help. Alric, myself, there are other people who will try to get you the help that you need to make a better life for yourself. You can do it. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that there is still hope for you, but you have to understand that. You have to want the change. And, sometimes you don't know where to begin. And maybe you just begin by reaching out to someone else. We're not trying to put you guys down. We're trying to say that what you're doing is wrong. We're not going to give you right when it's wrong. But at the same time, we understand some of the struggles that have led you to be where you are. And so as a country, we're begging you to let's do better. Let's turn it around. And a lot of it starts with opportunities, with education, and with making better choices. So, that's the most that I can say. I'm a mother now, and it just pains me to think that some of you are also parents, and this isn't just about you anymore. You're going to be negatively impacting the lives of your own children because they're either going to grow up with a father who's been murdered and gunned down in the streets of the Cayman Islands due to unnecessary violence, or you're going to spend so much time in a jail cell in prison that your children will not get to know you. They will grow up in the same dysfunctional environment. And we're going to just go from one generation to the next, and we can break this cycle. So another comment has come in saying, good morning, excellent show. I'm in awe of that young man, Jared. I wish someone would listen to Michael. He has so much knowledge and could do so much. Another commentator says, good morning, great show, super proud of you. Tell you the details when we speak. Okay. Will you be carrying the government debate this morning? Yeah, so we're going to cue that up for 10 o'clock. And said, I just signed back onto your show, and it's at the part of you being so emotional. I'm sorry, but sometimes it just really gets to me. Another person says, as a mother, they sent me a little hug emoji. Amen, Sandra, great work. I feel it for my kids, my country this morning. Very emotional show. So Alric, someone's asking about the relocation of the graves. I want to talk to you off air about that because I do intend to actually reach out to the NRA to find out. And I know you obviously weren't there when this decision was made, but I want to find out a little bit more about how that decision was made. And I have some other questions about some concerns down in the Windsor Park area as well that I need to speak to him about. So thank you, Ms. Paula. Ms. Paula says, thanks, Sandra, for all you do. God knows we need more and more voices such as yours. God bless you and your family. I appreciate that. Bristol says, thanks for the understanding because it's all some of us truly have and need to push forward and make changes and push forward. So understanding is always a great start. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I feel like we have these discussions and maybe young people think that we are, overly judging them. But, I believe in a little bit of tough love, but I also believe in sometimes a person just needs a hug and they need to understand that we do get it. Like you might not know our stories. You might not know where we've come from, but trust me, a lot of us started out in the very same place that you are, the very same place. And it was because of choices, little choices sometimes, every single day that has made a difference. So we're not looking down on you. We're trying to find a way to make sure that everyone in this country, especially Caymanians, have a helping hand and an opportunity to make a better life for themselves. Jonathan, thank you very much for your comments. He's talking about hotels, restaurant, dive operators who are hiring for Cayman Islands in the front of their business windows. Don't let them just say they put an advertisement in the paper. Laura says there's no need to apologize for being emotional. Great show. Thank you. Miss Sue, please have a happy birthday and enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to try to pop by and see you if I can. I do have a business meeting this morning. And also I need to take my car to get it, obviously, some quotes and stuff done as well. Joy San, thank you for joining the program. She says, one of the best topics ever. Need to save your children. They are the future. Alice says, Sandra, Alric, Michael, and Jared, wonderful show, and continue to do your great work. So again, I appreciate Jared coming on the program. We didn't plan it, but like anyone, you just click on that link and you can join in. I'm so pleased that as a young man, Jared is interested in the conversation and he's engaged, and he wants to be here. And I wish more people would join in. So Alric, thank you as always. Alric is here every week. The day kind of shifts because he is getting very, very busy now. He's got he is chairman of the NRA, the National Roads Authority Board. There's some things that he can talk to us about, and there are probably some matters NRA related that he can't talk to us about. So we never want to compromise his position and put him in a conflict of interest. But I know in terms of education and things that he can share with us, he's keen to do those things. Alric and Jared, have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
All right, everybody else, you guys have a wonderful day as well. Thank you, Miss Celine. Really appreciate your love and support. We will be back tomorrow morning, God's willing, at 7:30. Make sure that you tune in. Lots of interesting things happening in the community. And we seek to just, stay on top of it, quite frankly, and to make sure that we are bringing you all of the relevant discussions and points of interest that you want to hear. Sometimes it means changing up the show a little bit. There are times when we have something planned and we scrape it and start over. And we, if something happens today in the news, we're going to be talking about it tomorrow on the show because we believe in relevance. So we want to extend our condolences to the Jamaican community. They've lost a gentleman who is an actor. His name is, I think it's Voilier. They called him Maffey Johnson. I saw a skit that he did with Oliver, and he has worked in the theater for over 50 years. And unfortunately, he died over the weekend. Apparently, it looks like on Friday, he actually suffered a heart attack. And, he's done a lot of plays, including Oliver at Large series. And Patrick Brown, who's a playwright that created the Maffey character, remembers the actor as a friend who had a great relationship with everyone. So our condolences to him. If you've not seen that story, please check it out on the website. And it was also on our Facebook show. Andrea, thank you so much. And thank you, Miss Elizabeth. All of you have a wonderful day. And again, 10 o'clock, we're going to hear the government's budgetary plans. A lot of people have been wondering what they've been doing. This is one of the big things that the government has actually been working on. So now this is your responsibility. If you want to even know what this SPS is, a strategic policy statement, this is their sort of their roadmap going into their tenure. You've got to pay attention and you have to listen. So please go stretch your legs, get a break, get a snack, whatever. Listen to the Legislative Assembly proceedings. Even if you can't listen to it live, go back and listen to it because these are the things that are important in terms of our overall development. If we have governments who don't get it right, we're all going to be screwed. All right. Everybody, have a good day.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.